Hey there, fools. T here, and I've finally done it. I've finally done it. Hey, I found a gripe with the Nintendo Switch. Oh, it took so long and a lot of thinking, but I found a gripe. No, but seriously, I'm sure there'll probably be other things that bother me about the Switch. Issues I might have with certain software or hardware specifics, features and stuff like that. But this is the closest one to like a solid, solid information about something. That's been one of the main reasons it's been hard to talk about what you don't like about it. It's hard to do that because we don't have solid information on a lot of smaller things. So it's hard to do that. Actually, one of my worries, which I was not really worried about, was about basically the chat features and headset and all that stuff. Will the headset stuff be through a phone app? And that doesn't seem to be the case. It's pretty much been confirmed that the Switch itself will take Bluetooth headsets, the console itself, and it will also take headsets through the phone jack, headsets through the headset jack or the headphone jack when it's docked, only when it's docked. So you can use your headset if it's a wired one, or you can use Bluetooth. That's been confirmed in an interview. So the worries about having to be or being forced to be attached to a cell phone isn't what's going on, isn't what's going to happen. And actually, the cell phone app feature for chatting and setting up rooms, all that stuff was cool. I always thought that stuff was really cool, pretty innovative. I'm glad they did that. Terminator Juice, shout out to him, over a year ago, talked about how that would be a cool thing and they should do that because everybody pretty much has a smart device, and it'd be a smart, if you will, way of being able to connect to your console when you're not, with your console, when you're on the go, and you can set up matches and all that stuff before you come home, and that it'll all be ready to go, and you can just jump in and have fun. So I'm glad that is a thing. That's pretty damn cool. But the video is supposed to be about a gripe. And if you saw the thumbnail and the title, I'm sure you can figure out that I've looked for solid information, but all accounts point to there being no analog triggers on the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons or the Pro Controller. I'm actually fine about the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons because I understand that with all the other tech in there and they're wanting to make sure it stays a light device and having to, split it into two controllers, wanting to have that form factor would really hinder the ability to have analog triggers because there's a decent sized amount of hardware that goes into analog pressure sensitive triggers. So for the Joy-Cons, I at least understand that. I have no problem with the Joy-Cons not having analog support, but I think the Pro Controller should have it. Obviously the Pro Controller does have all the same tech except for the IR camera that the Switch Joy-Cons have. So I would hope that I would wish that it's a Pro Controller and it would have analog triggers in it. And you could say, well, that will split the developers basically utilizing it because not everybody can have a Pro Controller. That is true, but most developers develop their games with analog control in mind anyway. So what they should do, or what they should have done, and hopefully maybe we'll get a new iteration of the Pro Controller that does have triggers or analog triggers. What they should have done is done what basically over 20 years ago that the N64 did before you started a game. Basically, it would ask you if it had if the game needed a memory card and then N64 controller slot, and you can do all that business. But then it would ask you, do you want to utilize Rumble? So it would ask you ahead of time before you started the game if you wanted to utilize Rumble. And developers could have put in their software the same thing with the Switch. If you didn't have a Pro controller, it would ask you ahead of time, do you want to utilize analog triggers? And you can say yes or no, obviously. And if you said yes and you don't have a Pro controller, the software would know, it would know that you're not using the Pro controller. And it would say, well, you can't proceed because you don't have the Pro controller. So that is a pretty easy workaround, and it wouldn't cost too much time, barely any time at all for developers, because they've done this before. I'm sure they have an easy way to be able to turn on specific features for controllers and all that stuff. They did it 20 some odd years ago. So that way you wouldn't have to worry about splitting anybody. Just offer analog triggers for every game that would have analog features, analog trigger use for any game that would have had it anyway. And have a prompt that would ask, do you want to use analog? So that would be pretty simple. And obviously the Nintendo Switch has USB inputs in the dock itself, and they could do some kind of software update to let you use your GameCube controller or whatever. But that would be more complicated because for one, the easiest way to use a GameCube controller would be for obviously a GameCube Virtual Console. And as we know, the GameCube is, and I just didn't realize this, but it's the only Nintendo console that has analog triggers. And I just thought that was really weird. Only the GameCube has a controller with analog triggers. Nintendo did it once and they completely abandoned it for whatever reasons. I don't understand it, because analog triggers are cool as hell. And especially for racing games and stuff like that. And a lot of shooters utilize them now too, for aiming and stuff. So it's just like, I don't know why Nintendo decided to give up on a pretty standard feature in controllers these days. I don't know if they started the analog trigger. I think the DualShock had analog triggers first. Let me know in the comments below. I can't remember. But something, the DualShock, the DualShock came out with the PlayStation 1. It had the standard controller that didn't have any analog sticks on it, and then the DualShock came out a little later because everybody was using 3D, analog after N64, after Nintendo did it. So, yeah, obviously the GameCube, like the GameCube Virtual Console, if we wanted to utilize the GameCube controller and the adapter from the Wii, that would be very cool. And I'm sure they'd come up with something else, maybe a USB GameCube-like controller. That would probably be a little bit more expensive. I don't know if they still want to spend the money to do that, but just allowing people, and then you just have like a Switch. They couldn't call it the Switch GameCube adapter, but that relies on GameCube controls, because the GameCube pretty much had all the same face buttons and all that stuff, just a little bit obviously bean shaped and all the weird stuff going on. And the C stick was basically a right analog stick. So yeah, you can pretty much map to the same. But no, actually the trigger buttons, it only had the Z, so it doesn't have 4 trigger button, or it doesn't have 4 shoulder buttons, I should say. It only has 3, the GameCube controller. So that would be another issue. So it would be just easier to have a Pro controller that has analog triggers in it. And I haven't been able to find any information that the Pro controller does have analog, and I feel like it should, because it is a traditional controller for one. There's no weird splitting the controller in half and any other stuff that would affect the hardware needed to do analog pressure sensitive triggers. Like I said, I understand why they didn't do that for the Joy-Cons, because of the versatility of them. And I believe the hardware required for analog triggers is a little bit bigger and weightier, and would have made the Joy-Cons bigger and just would have affected it. So I understand why they're not in the Joy-Cons, but it should be in the Pro Controller. Especially since the Pro Controller is losing a feature that the Joy-Cons have, which is the IR camera. So that bugs me quite a bit. And, I like playing racing games. I'll play shooters from time to time, and that is a feature that is cool, to be able to use those analog triggers for stuff. And, they can come up with other cool things as well. So, yeah, I mean, that is my main gripe right now with the Switch. Not concerned about any of the multimedia features. Those will come. I didn't buy the console for that. I have, 3 smart TVs in my house. I have a smart Blu-ray player. I don't need any of that stuff. I don't use my video game consoles for that anymore. The last one I did that with was the Wii U. I never did it with the Xbox One. Did it a little bit with my PlayStation 3, not much. But I mostly, if I used anything, it was the Wii U for Netflix and web browsing and stuff. But once I got once I got my iPad and smart TVs all in the house, I stopped using game consoles for that. And it just puts more wear, especially on like the Switch, because it's so small. And it doesn't have the size of the bigger consoles and all the big fans and all that stuff, and it's so small and compact. I don't want to put a lot of wear, unnecessary wear on my Switch anyway. So using it for all that stuff is not something I was going to do. So I'm not worried about that. But yes, the analog trigger thing does bother me. I wish that at least the Pro Controller, like I said, had analog triggers. So it annoys me. I'm holding out hope that they just haven't mentioned it and it's in there, but I don't think so at this point. So yeah, that's it. Let me know what you think. Do you think, or do you wish that the Switch has analog triggers, or in the Pro Controller or the Joy-Cons even? Like I said, I think it's justifiable for not the Joy-Cons, but the Pro Controller, it's not really justifiable. So, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching and listening, and that's it for this one. And I'll see you fools next time. Peace out.
Units are en route. Dispatch, I have lost contact.
Oh yeah, one more thing. Play Nintendo, fools.
Do.